Okay, so now if you want to understand the DevOps, you'll have to study a little bit of the history of software development lifecycle. Okay, so what I did, I divided into the three sections. The something which we were doing in 1990s, and something which we are doing in 2000 onwards, and then 2020s onwards. So if you look at the 1990s, the software platform which we were using was desktop, laptop, something like that, and that's where we were running applications. And if I ask you, okay, we'll have to set up applications from scratch, having hardware, software, applications, prerequisite, all this thing in place. So in 1990, it used to take 1 day actually. Okay, and how we were consuming the software earlier? Console based. Console means the Windows console, Linux console, like that. We used to consume the application. So at that time, what was the software deliveries method which we were using? So I don't know how many of you have used the floppy disk, but later on we got our CDs and all, and that is how we used to deliver the software. So if someone will ask, hey, I need this software, I need that software, so you'll simply say, hey, go and get a CDs, buy a CDs, or copyright the CDs, right? So something like that. Copy the CDs, right? So if you look at the 1990s, what was the release cycle we used to have it? Release cycle means how frequently we were able to release the software. So we were able to release the software once in a year. You know the look at this MS Office, Adobe Photoshop. Once in a year they will release that. So these were the some of the characteristics which we had in the 1990s about the software industry. Platform desktop, setup time used to take 1 day, console based consumptions, delivery in series, and release cycle. If you develop a software at that time and you do the release, it used to take 1 year. So at that time, then scientists from the software industries, like computer science industries, they come up and said, okay, let's do one thing. We'll follow the monolithic model. Architecture is monolithic. Monolithic means MS Office, the one which you installed in your laptop, is monolithic, not cloud. Laptop is monolithic. That means hundreds of features you have in the MS Office, but consolidated in one package. Now understand that if there is a one changes you make in that software, you have to thorough the build that entire software, test entire software, and then release the software. So you used to take a lots of time actually. So that was a architecture monolithic. And at that time, what are the development model we followed? Waterfall model. And I'm sure most of you must be aware of it, or at least heard about this waterfall model. Are you comfortable, all of you?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Wonderful. Nothing great. Just I'm helping you to remind it, because sometimes what happens, sometimes we hear the one technology, and without a background knowledge, we started giving lots of importance to that terminology, which we should not do that. Okay. So in order to understand that DevOps, we have to understand this model. So this is the waterfall model. You know that this disadvantage what we had. This was in a sequence. You complete the requirement, then design, then implementation. If you complete the implementation, then verification, and then followed by maintenance. It was in a sequence, linear. That's the reason it used to take 1 year, because the requirement you do the 1 month, then design you do the 1 month, implementation you do the 3 months, then verification you do the 2 month, and then maintenance. So that is a linear. It used to take 1 year because of these reasons. And at that time we were putting all the features in one software itself. Let's say you have hundreds of features, put it in one software itself. So at that time, the software organization, software company came up with this waterfall idea. They said, okay, we'll do this first requirement, then design, then implementation, and so on. So we will do that this way because they wanted to reduce the quality release of the software, immediate release of software, cost reduction in the development and runtime. They wanted to do that. That's the reason they all follow the waterfall model. Then you'll say, Rajesh, They wanted to improve the quality of the software, so they opted waterfall. They wanted to reduce the release cycle, they opted for waterfall. And cost reduction in the development and runtime, then they opted for waterfall model. That means, are you saying earlier, before 1990s, software development used to happen in a multiple years? Yes, that's true. If you read the history of the software development, lots of software used to develop by USA, defense industries and stuff like that. They used to take 7 years, 8 years, 9 years actually. And by the time it is in release process, then requirement is over for the software. So that was the reality. So why we opted for waterfall model? Because of that problems which you had earlier. So now, instead of releasing the software in 5 years, now we are able to do in 1 year. That's a great success actually. Okay. And that's where somewhere that time we got the internet. Okay. So now time has come from moving from console based to browser based. So we got the internet. And what happened after the internet? So we started accessing applications with the browser. So what changes has happened? So then we say, hey, we have to run application in data center because it's a browser based, right? So earlier you were running application in your laptop and desktop. You were paying for the consuming the CPU and RAM and hard disk, not your not Microsoft or not Adobe system were paying for it. Who is paying? You were paying at that time. But here in 2001 onwards, that the organization like Yahoo or any web-based application which you use, they started paying for that applications. They started because they have to run the application in data centers. That's where the CPU, RAM, and storage, electricity, power, human resources needed. It's not only of the software. On top of the software, they were running the software, and you were accessing the software through the browser, and you are not paying for it. Just recall your memory how much you paid for it. Yahoo, how much you paid for Orkut, how much you paid for the Google searches, how much you paid for any other services. You're not paying, they were making money, but in a different way. So they decided we'll reduce the runtime wastage in the data center. So that is where they migrated from the desktop physical server to virtual server. Now, when you have a virtual server, then you know that how much time it takes to configure the virtual server. Only 5 minutes. How you are consuming the application? Through the browser. How you are delivering the software? Through the deployment in download and all stuff like that. What was the release cycle? 2 weeks. How come 2 weeks? Because that is where the architecture you change from monolithic to SOA. SOA means service oriented architecture, and the model which you opted for it, for it is Agile. So Agile recommend to have a release cycle 2 weeks. So is that something like you were doing earlier in 1 year and now you were doing in the 2 weeks? No, it's not happen like that. Let's say in 1990s you were doing hundreds of feature development in 1 year, but what you did actually in 2000 onwards, you say I will do the only two feature development in 2 weeks rather than 100. That's the reason this got reduced. So earlier, remember that in waterfall model, this development team were separate, architect team were separate, testing team will separate, and operations team were separate. But in agile model, what has happened? Development team and testing team, they got it together, and we call it a engineering team. And operations team were still separate in agile model. So guys, are you comfortable with the 2001 words? All of you? Any doubts, any questions, any confusion?
No,
Hello?
no question.
Now we'll talk about this third things. So now the question I am having in my mind, why we move to waterfall agile? If you look at this here, just a second. This is the agile model image. Now those who have no idea about agile, don't stress yourself. Simple way you need to understand. Agile team have consist of development, architect, and QA. No operation involvement in it. Okay, so development and QA at a high level, and agile team will do the delivery every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Not everything they will deliver, only one or two features they will deliver in each week. That we call it a sprint. Okay, so that means in agile technology methodology, they work together. Development and QA people work together as a one team. That's called agile team. And then we have a scrum master and all this daily scrum happens and all. So that is the things. Okay, so now why they migrated from waterfall to agile? Same region. Look at the same region. I'm not changing any region. So they want to increase the quality of the software again, much more, much better than earlier. And then immediate release of the software. They wanted to see earlier we had a reduced 1 day to 5 minutes, but still we organization want to reduce the release duration, and they wanted to reduce the cost in software development also and runtime also. Runtime means development means office cost, salary cost, all these things. Runtime means your data center cost. Okay, so they wanted to reduce that. Now that is where then we got the internet, sorry, devices, means mobile devices. See, earlier we were accessing the browser through the, what do you say, laptop or desktop. But now we have a devices. Everyone is having devices. I don't think so. There's a one person in this session who's not having a devices, Android devices, Apple devices, correct? So how do you access the application? Not any more browser you do. You are accessing through the app. See, if you're not a software engineer, just look at the life of your family members. Let's say your mother, your father, or your someone who's not in the engineering domain, like software engineering domain. So they are only accessing the they have a devices and they have an app. That's all. That is how the consumption is been there. So now we are accessing the application through app, Android devices and all. And if you look at this, the trend here, understand that very simple thing, but very deep to understand. We all are connected actually. We all are connected. How? Let me remind you. Earlier, let's say if you use MS Office, you go and buy it from the market and you will install it. You will be the owner of it. You will be having the ownership on that MS Office installed in your laptop or desktop. But now, do you own WhatsApp? No. Do you own Google? No. Do you own Facebook, LinkedIn, ICICI Bank? No. You can't own. You are browsing, and we all are browsing the same application. Don't you think so? Earlier, we see if I have a problem in MS Office, only I will get impacted. Other people will not get impacted. But now, if there is a problem in the Uber, Ola, or ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, Flipkart, then everyone is having problem. Correct, no? Because we all are using same software. Correct? All of you?
Yes,
Hello?
it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So think it's very simple logic, nothing great about it. When we all are using same software, that software has to be up and running 24 by 7. And how come it will be up and running 24 by 7? Simple thing. You'll say, Rajesh, we need to improve the code quality. Wonderful. Then you'll say, we need to improve the build quality. We need to have a more better way to test the software. Okay. Then you will say, we need to work on the strategies of the deployment. We need to check the security concerns and all. So all these thing parameters will come, correct? So yes, we all are connected to the same software, and if the software is down, you know that what will happen. So organization wants the better quality of the software. Cost of the software should be reduced again, because more and more people are using the software. They're not, paying for it. And the speed, let's say if you access the Uber and Ola, let's say Uber is not responding for 5 seconds, what you'll do? Immediately you'll migrate to Ola, something like that. You know that what will happen. So the company will use you as a prime customer. So that is where the organization started thinking in many other directions also, and they had the same goal. If you look at this, the goal is not changed actually. They again wanted to focus on the quality of release of the software. They wanted to immediate release of the software. They wanted to reduce the cost reduction in the development and runtime. Again, same objective all the time. It was there, it is there, and it will be there. The objective is same, only the tool sets and culture and other stuff are